Lioness Season 3 has already made one thing very clear. This mission is no longer staying neatly inside the boundaries of the CIA. Episode 4, titled Murder Hornets, is scheduled for August 23rd, and the official synopsis teases a frantic hunt where the team is racing against time while Neal struggles with increasingly serious fears at home. And that combination is important, because when a Lioness episode puts the field operation and Joe's family life under pressure at the same time, usually one storyline is about to collide with the other. The question is whether Joe can stop the threat before it reaches her family again. And based on everything Season 3 has established so far, I don't think Episode 4 is simply about finding an enemy. I think it could be about discovering how close that enemy has already gotten. Let's start with the title itself. Murder Hornets. That sounds aggressive, chaotic, and almost impossible to contain, which fits the direction Season 3 appears to be taking. The season's central mystery involves hidden networks, foreign operatives, and betrayals that are beginning to overlap with Joe's personal life. Paramount's own description emphasizes that unseen forces are circling Joe while patterns, names, and established paths begin to disappear. That gives us a very interesting possibility. The enemy may not be operating like a conventional target. Instead of one obvious villain giving orders from the shadows, Joe could be dealing with a network where eliminating one person simply creates another problem somewhere else. And that's exactly the kind of situation that can overwhelm even an experienced operative. You cut off one head, another appears. So when the episode promises a frantic hunt, I don't think the real question will be, can Joe find them? The bigger question is, what happens if Joe finds them too late? The official synopsis describes the team as launching a frantic hunt while racing against the clock. That wording suggests this isn't going to be a slow intelligence investigation. Something is moving, someone is preparing something, and the Lioness team may have only a limited window to stop it. This is where the trailer becomes especially interesting from a prediction standpoint. Whenever Lioness puts its characters under a strict time limit, the biggest danger isn't necessarily the enemy they're chasing. It's the possibility that the team will be forced to make a decision without having all the information. Joe has always been strongest when she can control the operation, but Season 3 has been systematically taking that control away. And if Episode 4 pushes that even further, Joe may have to choose between following the mission exactly as planned or making a risky decision that could expose the entire operation. And we know Joe, when she believes someone is in danger, she doesn't always wait for permission. That could become a major problem. Now let's talk about Neal. The synopsis specifically highlights his growing fears at home. That might seem like a secondary storyline compared with the CIA operation. I don't think it is. In fact, Neal could become one of the most important pieces of Episode 4. Season 3 has been increasingly interested in the cost of Joe's profession on her family. Dave Annable has also discussed the pressure surrounding Joe and Neal's relationship and whether their love can survive the extreme circumstances surrounding their lives. And that creates a fascinating possibility. What if Neal is beginning to understand that the danger surrounding Joe isn't temporary? What if he realizes that their family isn't simply dealing with the aftermath of Joe's missions anymore? What if the danger is coming directly to them? That would change everything. Because Joe can accept putting herself in danger, but she has always struggled with the idea of someone else paying the price for her choices. And if Neal starts taking matters into his own hands, Joe could suddenly have another unpredictable variable to deal with. Here's where my biggest prediction comes in. I don't think Episode 4 will completely reveal the mastermind behind everything. Instead, I think we're going to get another major piece of the puzzle. Season 3 has deliberately emphasized hidden networks and enemies operating in the shadows. That means the person Joe thinks she's hunting might not be the person actually controlling the situation, and that creates a classic Lioness problem. The target could actually be bait. Imagine Joe and the team successfully locating someone connected to the threat. They move in. They think they've finally found the answer. But instead of ending the operation, the capture reveals that this person was only one small part of something much larger. That would perfectly explain why the team is racing against time. They're not simply chasing a person. They're trying to catch an entire operation before it moves. Another major piece of this story is Kaitlyn and Westfield. Season 3 places Joe under their guidance as they attempt to deal with the growing threat. But here's the problem. Joe is becoming personally connected to the mission, and whenever that happens, the command has to wonder whether the operative is still making decisions purely for the operation. Kaitlyn may eventually have to choose between protecting Joe and protecting the mission, and I wouldn't be surprised if Episode 4 starts creating that conflict, because Joe may want to move faster than command allows. She may see something that Kaitlyn doesn't. Or worse, Kaitlyn may know something Joe doesn't. If that happens, the relationship between them could become much more complicated. And in a show like Lioness, information is power. Whoever knows the most usually controls the operation. Here's the prediction I think viewers should really watch. I don't believe Episode 4 ends with Joe simply completing another successful mission. There needs to be a consequence. Maybe an operative gets exposed. Maybe an important target escapes. Maybe the team discovers that someone they trusted is compromised. Or perhaps the biggest consequence happens outside the mission. Neal's fears could become reality, and if that happens, Joe may finally be forced to confront the one question she's been avoiding. How much of her family is she willing to sacrifice for the job? Because Joe has spent years convincing herself that she can separate these two worlds. The CIA world, the family world, but Season 3 appears determined to prove that separation may no longer be possible. If Taylor Sheridan wants to deliver the kind of ending that sends viewers straight into Episode 5 theories, I think the episode could reveal that the threat is much closer to Joe than expected. Perhaps the team catches someone who knows something about the attack. Perhaps a supposedly unrelated event suddenly connects back to the central operation. Or perhaps Neal discovers something at home that Joe never knew was there. And that's where I think the title, Murder Hornets, becomes even more interesting. A hornet isn't dangerous only because it can attack. It's dangerous because once the nest is disturbed, everything can swarm at once. That could be exactly what happens to Joe. She may think she's finally found the enemy, but by exposing the enemy, she could accidentally trigger the next stage of the operation. So my biggest prediction for Lioness Season 3 Episode 4 is this. Joe may win the immediate battle, but lose control of the bigger war. The team could find an important clue. They could stop an immediate threat. They could even identify someone connected to the conspiracy. But if the real enemy has been manipulating events from much deeper inside the system, then Joe might only be walking into the trap exactly as planned. And here's the question I want to leave you with. What if the people Joe is hunting aren't the real threat at all? And what if the real target has been Joe herself from the beginning? Because if that's true, Episode 4 could completely change the way we understand everything that has happened so far. Let me know your prediction in the comments. Do you think Joe is finally getting close to the Mastermind, or is she being deliberately pulled into a trap? And if you want more Lioness Season 3 trailer breakdowns, theories, and episode predictions, make sure you subscribe, because if this episode ends the way I think it might, Episode 5 could be where everything finally explodes.